Hi, I am Jacob Wagner. In this video, I will show you how to work with baking. In this video, I have basically the same setup as we did in the last video. So I have some clones that are being transitioned out by an effector, a random effector and a plane effector. Unlike the last video where we only had 10 clones, we now have 30 clones. And we're going to get a bigger performance hit because the more clones we have, the more of a performance hit we're going to get. Also, the more effectors we're going to add, the bigger performance hit we're going to get. So basically, the more clones we have, the more effectors we have, the slower the animation is going to be on the timeline. One thing that can really slow things down is the motion blur. If we turn on the motion blur, it's going to be very, very slow. And the reason for that is that After Effects doesn't really like the combination of having a lot of items that are being controlled by expressions and motion blur at the same time. You can see if I go to a different frame, it needs to use quite a lot of time on recalculating that frame. And that's because of the motion blur. Remember, when you are doing your final rendering, you most likely have motion blur enabled. So if I would do a final render of this now, the render time would be very long. But if I bake this animation into keyframes first, then the rendering time will be much smaller. And it will also be very easy for me to handle it on the timeline. So I'm gonna bake this animation, and you do that simply by clicking the button Bake. So click that, and it's going to start baking all the clones. Depending on how many clones you have and how complicated your setup is, this is going to take a little while. So I'm just gonna pause the video recording until it's done. Okay, so we can see that now the animation is done baking. We will see that all our setting is gone, and the only thing we have is the possibility to unbake it. And if we look at our cloner and our effectors, we still have all our settings. But if we change any of them, nothing is going to happen because all the animation is now being baked into the keyframes of the layers. This means, however, that our playback is much smoother now. Even if we turn on motion blur, it's not going to be much of a problem. It can easily play back the animation, and your final render time is also going to be very fast and smooth. Unbaking is, of course, just as easy as baking. You just click the unbake button and it's now going to unbake. Luckily, the unbake function is much faster than the bake function. So that was everything about baking. Thank you for watching, and see you in the next video.